Luke Fickell, here to give Tausch grief and talk a little football, too, on Wilde Tausch. Coach, how are you today?
I'm doing well. Just got off the field. So Tausch wasn't out there today. We were on outside. It was a little chilly, so I didn't figure that a former offensive lineman would make it out for practice. But nonetheless, I'm here.
I
like that Saturday. You guys don't really schedule practice around my schedule, which is what I normally like. You got the Saturday figured out, but you're going early during the Wilde Tausch show in the rest of spring, which doesn't really fit my schedule.
Well, that was on purpose a little bit, but we also knew that since it was below 55 degrees, you probably wouldn't make it outside. If you could make it,
That's
it's
fair.
just a little chilly for the former offensive line guy.
So true. If I don't want to risk having you hang up on me here, Luke, but I do think it's important to point out that you've brought in a former offensive line guy to get your offense going. So the offensive line slander, I don't believe me. I don't want to defend Tausch. That I have no interest in that. But how vital is our offensive lineman, especially when you got one who was great when he talked to us last week? I think you got a pretty good one in Jeff Grimes to help your offense get going. You'll make an exception for that offensive lineman?
It's mostly just a Tausch thing. It really doesn't have to do with O-line. It doesn't put as much pressure on him to say, why would this guy not always be on you, to just generalize it with offensive linemen. But nonetheless, yes, Coach Grimes is a former offensive line guy and has been a great asset. And I'm excited. I'm excited since the time I got a chance to meet him and spend some time with him, and I'm even more excited as we, getting towards the end of our spring ball and, seeing where we are and what we have to look forward to in front of us.
So, Luke, how has that process been? Because obviously you felt that was important to change course, and look, Jeff Grimes is a pretty impressive dude from my experience. So how has the process been throughout the spring transitioning to his offense?
Well, it's been a process, and I think that more so even in the winter. I mean, we spent a lot more time just the nature of, it gave us an excuse to say, hey, we've got a new offense and we've got to do some things defensively different to do more football. But I think to the most part I think our guys are feeling more and more comfortable with where they are and what we're doing and, what we need to continue to do to be ready for the fall. But I think everybody's excited. Really, within the program, I think, there's just so much more on everybody's plate. In the past, it seemed like things were on the quarterback's plate and even the wide receiver's plate, where now all of a sudden there's much more on the offensive lineman's plate and the tight end's plate. And you know what? They enjoy that and they embrace that.
Boy, I bet you that pains you to say that offensive line is smart. You mentioned quarterback.
I said more on their plate.
That's true, but it was implied. There was an implication to that. So you're talking quarterback, and that obviously with how the transfer portal and how everything is going, I heard your interview on the Big Ten Network, and you kind of talked about Billy Edwards, and one of the things you love his leadership so far. You see some good things on the field, but kind of just take us into how Billy is adjusted to his new team.
Yeah, today was maybe one of Billy's rougher days. Just had some things out there at practice, some balls tipped and fall in the other guys' hands. But it even showed me more even today in his ability to handle whatever's kind of thrown at him, and still continue to lead. Because as we know, that position in particular, everybody looks at. And that position combined with, having to always be a leader can be exhausting. And even in a day like today where, things didn't go well, I saw the maturity in him. I saw the ability to continue to lead and, and that means holding other people and himself accountable on a consistent basis was something even, and they took another step that, for me today. But he's done a great job at just coming in here and embracing things. And it was a different, just so you guys know, it was different. The last 2 years we've obviously had a quarterback that we've had to from the transfer portal that has come in and become the starter. Both of those, in theory, we brought him in and say, hey, you got to go compete for it. And not that Billy isn't competing, but I think it took a little bit away from those guys and their ability to kind of insert themselves as a leader and the leader of an offense and a team. And walking in the door, Billy, we've just kind of said, hey, this is your team. This is your offense. We're going to have others to compete with you, but we want you to start leading and be a leader from day one. And he's kind of taken that and run with it.
The offensive line, which we've talked about a bunch, obviously a tough injury over at left tackle. What's kind of the thought process moving forward? You see a lot of guys getting a lot of work across the group. What are you thinking over at left tackle moving forward?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I do think obviously Leighton Nelson's playing there right now, and we could move Emerson Mandel out there, which he hasn't solidified like whether he's a guard or he's a tackle, and so I think he's a definite guy that maybe even be a little bit more comfortable at the tackle position. Do we get and when do we get Barrett Nelson back? Barrett Nelson, he's a guy that obviously got injured there in the winter. So there's some definite options. It's just, again, we got to figure out how it all kind of ties and who continues to mature and, what young guys have an opportunity. And then we do need to take a peek at this portal window, just because when you have an injury, I think that's one of those things that, with the way the game is today and the landscape, it gives you an opportunity to see if there's something that you think could really help you moving forward, and especially for this year.
All right, Luke, you mentioned the portal, and so I loved what you said. It obviously got a lot of attention. This is not a grown-ass man's show, but it is a grown-ass man's league. I'm curious, like, you're 2+ years into this. You obviously had tons of success in the previous version of college football. You've joined us multiple times. We've talked about the challenges of this. You can't complain about it. It is what it is. But can you explain just how freaking hard it is to figure out how to build a roster with all this? And do you think we're finally getting to a place where there'll be more guardrails and normalcy so you can do it without having to always be adjusting on the fly?
Well, yes. I do think we're getting really close to some of those guardrails that at least allows you to plan for the future and how you want to continue to do things. When there aren't, the hard thing is it's almost like day to day. And in that process, I think it does hurt a little bit of the development. And that's something that, we want to continue to pride ourselves upon. But I do think that, hey, where this thing is headed and, with the guardrails, with your ability to say, okay, here's some structure now, you guys got to go build. I know for a fact that we've got a plan that I feel much better about, as opposed to even the last couple of years where it's okay now that it's hard to have a plan just because there is no structure, and you kind of just keep throwing stuff at the wall and hoping that it sticks, unfortunately, and that just hasn't boded well for us. And that's not an excuse. That's the landscape, and that's I think maybe has slowed down the development of a lot of younger guys. And, but I think we're in a better place now. And I do love the development, but we do understand that when I said that idea that it's a grown-ass man's league, what I mean is, like, every guy, they don't get the luxury of growing up like I did, or even like Tausch did. I mean, like, not that he's that much younger, but I'd say even in the last, that wasn't a stab. That was just truth. Like, in the last 3 years, I would say this league has changed. And I think that means as a younger guy in a program, you don't have nearly as much time. You got to become a pro. You got to grow up. You got to mature really fast if you want to play. And if you don't, you got to look for some of these guys that have a lot more maturity walking in the door, because that's what you're going to play against every single week.
Well, on the flip side of that, look, I cover the NFL. It's almost exclusively what I've covered now for a long time. So those are, and I'm enjoying just saying this on the radio and seeing if Jesse gets in trouble for it, grown-ass men. It's great. But I also, and Tausch is a parent too, the athletes in my house are 15 and 14. And one of the things we talk a lot about is overcoming adversity, right? Coach doesn't play you as much as you want. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to overcome that? And you, as a player, Tausch as a player. You had to fight for your opportunities. We were talking to Matt Bowen, who played at Iowa and played in the NFL yesterday. We were talking to him about that and his process at Iowa to become a starter toward the end of his career. Do you think, and how do you go about coaching? Because you have the line about you can't coach hostages. But it would be great if you would have some more guys, and I'm not saying you don't have them on your team, but guys that want to go through that journey and go through that adversity and then come out on the other side of it as a better player and a better person because of it. Are we losing that because of what we have now in college football, or am I overreacting?
No, we are, and that's again, we all have to adapt to what the what the landscape is. But I do fear. I'm like, or worried. Look, I've got two juniors in high school that want to go play football at the next level, and I reiterate to them on a consistent basis, like, there's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of things you got to be able to overcome, but the game is continuing to grow, and guys that aren't prepared to be able to battle that adversity, we have made it a little bit too easy to take the easy route. And I mean that in the sense that if things don't go exactly the way you want them to in your year one or year two, I'm not saying everybody, but like, it just has become so much easier to find a way to go to another direction. And we know as parents, sometimes the most difficult thing is when your kid is struggling, right? I mean, there's nothing more difficult. But I also know that, like, they have to struggle. They have to struggle in order to grow. And to think that there's an easier route all the time is not the case. And right now, just in college athletics, we've made it a little bit easier to say, hey, this might not be working for you. Let's find another place or another direction. And in the long run, I think that's going to cost us. And I don't just mean us as a program. I just mean I think it's going to cost a lot of our youth, and these guys need to grow up.
Is it nice to find that out? Kind of the comments were about a couple of the portal kids that came in and are probably leaving this spring. Is it nice that you find that out right away and you can find an alternative moving forward? Because my hunch is coaches are fine with one portal, but this idea of two portals, it gives guys another opportunity if they don't get the reps that they want in spring, that they can go and find, not that it's an easier way, but it's the path of least resistance.
And that's the thing I use, the path of least resistance. Yeah, it is. And that's the hard part, is there's still a little bit of an exit for people. And to be honest with you, I mean, in order for those guys to go, just so you know, in order for those guys, it had to be a mutual thing. So there are some stipulations that guys don't just have the freedom to go whenever they want. But as a program and as a team, we start to recognize, look, I don't want to find out on August 28th or September, whatever, in Tuscaloosa, that they don't really love what it is that they're doing. They aren't committed to their teammates. This is a little bit too much for them. Like, I guess it's better that you find that out now so that you can continue to develop the people that deep down inside have it. They just haven't had the opportunity to be able to show it yet. So I think it's twofold. I think, in some ways you could say, hey, let's look at the positive. This is going to give us a chance to make sure we know the guys that truly want to be here, because if they don't, there is a little window that they could still find something that's easier for them.
Solving all the problems of college athletics with Luke Fickell on Wilde Tausch. We'll work on the stock market and the other stuff that's going on a subsequent appearance for you. Let's talk a little bit of football. And I know Tausch has been out to a few practices. I have not. I would like to make it out there, although if I have to stand next to him, I'm maybe less interested. But you've got the spring
showcase. We'll get you a better spot than where he stands.
Okay, perfect. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you. You've got the spring showcase on Saturday. I still remember covering the NFL draft. It was going on at the same time as the spring game, and Lee Evans tore his ACL in a spring game. And I am.
Oh, thank you.
I am the bubble wrap type.
Yeah, great
guy.
Great karma you're bringing there.
No, that's history. but
okay.
It's illustrative of the thing that, look, Matt LaFleur is a bubble wrap guy up here in Green Bay. He does not want live tackling. I mean, he plays it safe. Okay, a lot of coaches do. How do you weigh that, Luke, in terms of your approach to spring practice, fall practice, the spring game? Because I would argue that it also leads to poorer tackling and maybe even guys not being ready to get hit when it matters. So how do you weigh that when you're planning your spring practices and your spring game?
It's a difficult one, to be honest. And I think that we're getting closer towards, what the next level has. And if and when we go to this 105, I don't know that there's going to be a possibility of having spring games of any sort. Just with a limited number of guys, especially that you would have in spring. But, look, I didn't sleep for a couple of days, when Kevin Haywood got hurt last week in practice. Mm-hmm. And the truth of the matter is it wasn't in a live drill. It wasn't in a inside drill. It wasn't in a team run drill. It was in a 2-minute drill where, you're working, pass and tap stuff. And so it still bothered me. It still, took a couple of days to sleep, thinking what if and what should we have done. And so you don't know. I know this. Mm-hmm. I truly believe, I'm a guy, look, we got to continue to practice. We got to continue to push. We got to continue to play. But it's always in my mind. I do think for us, and I've told our guys this, we need to have a really physical, we need to have a spring where we can go live and we can do some of these things, because I don't know that that's going to be what our fall looks like. And so I think you have to figure out, okay, can we take care of the football? Can we tackle? I'm a little bit more apt to say, let's do that in the spring to figure out where we are, because I think as the fall moves forward for us, I think we're going to have to be smarter. I don't want to say a bubble wrapped guy, but we got to be smarter. We know what we've got. Okay. We've got to develop still some of those younger guys, but this is that grown man league that you say by August or by September, you got to know the guys that you got, and you got to get them ready.
All right, Luke, we should probably let you go, even though we could keep you much longer, and we have not hit our make fun of Tausch quota, which we normally do. But speaking of Tausch, this is what happens on this show. We have the head coach of Badger football, and we talk about cereal. He's a big Tony the Tiger guy. When you're going for your breakfast of choice and you have to eat cereal, what is Luke Fickell eating?
Oh, my goodness. I used to be a cereal guy myself, and I don't know if I've eaten cereal in the last, I don't know how many years. Anything with sugar, but they're just not in the house. So, you know what? All these different kinds of Chex now.
Oh,
between that and Raisin Bran would be where I would go. When you're a kid, the Fruit Loops and the Frost, all those. But now that stuff that doesn't appeal to me. It's more, hey, there's all different kinds of peanut butter Chex, to chocolate Chex, to and then, hey, by the way, there's some Raisin Bran. Oh, okay. Those things stay pretty good. That's where I'm headed.
All right. Well, I'm glad. See, Luke Fickell and I've got Raisin Bran and Chex guys.
He's got to be like a fruity. You got to be like a Fruity Pebbles or.
It's not Fruity Pebbles. No, I'm a Rice Krispies guy. Flakes? That's my top pick is Rice Krispies.
Little snap, crackle, and pop. Okay. I bet you pour some sugar and honey on top of that, though.
Yes.
There you go.
Plenty.
Chex guy. That's interesting.
Luke, thanks for humoring us with our stupidity and giving us insight at the same time. We appreciate you, man. Good luck on Saturday, and
you guys have
good
a great
luck
day
down the road. That is Luke Fickell, the Badgers football coach on Wilde Tausch, and a Chex guy. Chex underrated. We didn't do a good enough job of getting into Chex while we were discussing cereal.